A bit of a note before we get started. I recorded this before I learned of the tragic events in Nashville, so there is no reference to it in this video. What the shooter did was horrific. How the right is using this as propaganda to vilify an entire group is dangerous. This video is a response to an anti-trans tweet from last week posted by a prominent person on the left. The messages in my video have become vitally important to get out and start wider conversations about transphobia and how we on the left need to come together to stand up to the genocidal rhetoric coming from the right. Now, on to the show. Do, theme song, do, I'm broke so this is my theme song, do, just imagine this is an awesome theme song, do, theme song. Hello, welcome to Left of the Box. Bonjour, bienvenue. I'm Sandy. When I started the script, I was thinking, it's just going to be 2-3 pages at most. Ooh, yeah. For those of you who don't know, important context for this video. I'm non-binary or NB, and I have a uterus, and I menstruate. I do not identify as a woman. Should probably throw in a content warning. We're going to be talking about a lot of transphobia. So there's been a bit of a stir on Twitter. I know, not the most shocking thing, I get it. But there's a twist in this discourse that struck a nerve in me, that has me wanting to transfer my consciousness into a cat so I can spend the rest of my life shitting in people's beds. When I started this video, it was about one issue, but I realized it's tangled with other issues that is making everything worse than it has to be. I'm going to be talking about evolving language, leftist infighting, and allyship. Quite honestly, I don't want to wade into online drama. I care about the issues, and I know that by talking about this, I'm opening a can of worms. But I realized I can't talk about the issue I want without also addressing these other issues. I've been taking my time, reading comments, watching videos, because I don't want this coming from a place of reactionary anger. The left? Yeah, we got problems. Seriously, what are we doing? The right doesn't have to do anything to antagonize us. Every time they poke us with a stick to see if we're dead yet, we go into a frenzy attacking each other over what kind of stick they used. I'm going to do my best to be fair and give a thoughtful breakdown of what happened. I'm going to be talking about people on the left, and what I say isn't meant to throw any shade. This is me in autistic mode, stating what I observe while adding my perspective to it. I like and respect all the people I mention. Well, the ones on the left anyway. It's possible to be upset with someone and still like them. I'm struggling with this because I know that by mentioning one of these people will cause problems for me, but they're relevant to my analysis. The fact that I have a real worry that people who like my content, agree with me, appreciate what I have to say, will suddenly put a hex on me because of one opinion is a sorry statement of where we're at. It shouldn't be this way. We shouldn't be afraid to speak our minds or publicly support each other. We shut each other down before we find common ground in a self-censoring, agree with me 100% or drink cat piss tea type attitude. Meanwhile, the right has mobilized. Republicans most people don't like and disagree with are stripping people's rights away and turning the US into a Christo-fascist state. Twitter has been a hostile fart sauna for the past few days. It's not where this conversation should be happening, yet it seems to be the primary place it is happening. All it's doing is making people angrier because of misinterpretations, lack of nuance, and an inability to have a thorough conversation. That said, please go follow me there. Okay, please hit some buttons while I collect myself. This is going to be very draining for me. Where it all started. Anna Kasparian, producer and host of the Young Turks, TYT, the largest progressive news network in the world, tweeted this out. I'm a woman. Please don't ever refer to me as a person with a uterus, birthing person, or person who menstruates. How do people not realize how degrading this is? You can support the transgender community without doing this shit. Okay. Where is this coming from? Who referred to her specifically as a birthing person? No one is calling her that. Not all women can get pregnant. Not all people who can get pregnant are women. Because of that, terms like birthing person, people with uteruses, and people who menstruate are used when talking about reproductive issues. I never once heard anyone directly refer to another person as a uterus owner or monthly menstruator. Well, her tweet blew up. A lot of people were angry with what she tweeted for understandable reasons. Let's start with the timing. The U.S. is on the cusp of an open, accepted, even embraced genocide of trans people. Trans people are making escape plans in case they need to flee the country. Here in Canada, we're working towards legislation that would allow transgender and non-binary people to claim asylum in the event they're no longer allowed to exist in the U.S. States have passed laws banning gender-affirming care to youth. About 50% of trans children can no longer receive their gender-affirming care. More states are working towards it. More are making the laws more extreme to encompass all trans folks, no matter their age. Laws dictating where trans people are allowed to be in public, how they're allowed to behave in public, have been passed. Transphobic media personalities have been calling for us to be erased, eradicated from public life, accusing us of being groomers and a danger to children. And the platforms that allow this rhetoric to be blasted are doing nothing to reel it in. In fact, some platforms like Twitter have been opening up to more of it. With all of this going on, out of the blue, Anna, a supposed ally of trans folks, drops this. Not helpful. I don't know how much more clear I can make this. No one is trying to remove the word woman from the vocabulary. No one is denying people the right to identify as a woman. No one is telling Anna she has to refer to herself as a birthing person. Whereas people, the government, are taking away people's right to identify as trans and MB. Another reason people are upset with her tweet is because the language she used is similar to the language TERFs use. Anna handed the right wing a stick to poke us with. So many right-wingers retweeted it, had positive things to say about it, praised her for it. If you look at the comments, they're full of transphobic monsters who now feel validated because someone as far left as Anna agrees with them. If I tweeted something out unaware of what the impact would be and suddenly got a lot of positive attention from the right and people on the left asking me what the hell, I'd drop everything I'm doing to figure out why. Anna received a lot of backlash from people on the left. Yeah. But here's where we get into the frenzy. Some of the comments Anna received were personal attacks and uncalled for, people jumping to conclusions and calling her names. There was even a fake tweet going around of her showing her being interviewed by the Daily Wire. Don't do this. Not helpful. If you don't like a lefty content creator, don't make up reasons to go after them. Don't spread misinformations in hopes of getting people on your side. Don't try to blow the issue up into something it's not to feed a narcissistic need to be the purest of the left. I hope if I ever did anything like this, people would have enough faith in me to ask me what was going on instead of assuming the worst about me and immediately discounting all the good I've done. I don't feel this should discount all the good Anna's done. On the majority of issues, I agree with Anna and I feel she's great at what she does. I also have very strong disagreements with her on a few topics, and I question if some of the things she does is in the best interest of the left. Do I think Anna is transphobic? No. Do I think she should be canceled over this? Of course not. But there's no subtle way around it. That tweet was transphobic, and her being piled on because of it? Yeah. Here again is where some of the anger was coming from. People did ask her what was going on. People who like her were cutting her slack. The way she engaged with people and what happened after, not helpful. She was super friendly with the people who agreed with her and snapped at others who were trying to, in good faith, point out the issue, and she continued to use TERF-aligned language. Mike from the Humanist Report tweeted, I respect you a lot, but this notion that the mere existence of trans-inclusive terms, rarely used in casual convo, somehow degrades women comes right out of the right's anti-trans war on women playbook. There's a reason why they're praising you for this. She replied to him, Hey, Mike, you're a guy and have no clue what it's like to have your reproductive freedom taken away. But consider what it's like to have the same lawmakers who fail to protect our rights turn around and call us people with uteruses. It's not inclusive if cis women hate it. People did know not all cis women hate it. How many people are actually referring to you using this language? It must be a lot for you to air this grievance in the middle of an international hate crusade against trans people. I'm sure Ben Shapiro is retweeting you because he supports your reproductive freedom, though. It's used by many major institutions, ACLU, CDC, universities, and news agencies, and prominent progressive figures like AOC. AOC does use it when referring to reproductive rights. And the guilt by association charge is lazy and lame. It's not about guilt by association. The point is the far-right fascists are using your tweet for anti-trans propaganda purposes. There's no way you're not cognizant of this. I respect you. This is really disappointing. I genuinely don't get it, actually. I, as an NB with a uterus, have no problem with Mike weighing in. I don't believe if a person isn't part of a group, they should never speak up. If a cis man wants to contribute in good faith, I give them a chance. You don't know their background, their experiences they've had, what they bring to the table, things in their life that could be relatable to what we're talking about. And we want allies to speak up. Generally speaking, if the person isn't ally, it's because they're not part of the group. Shutting them down pushes their support away. I also didn't see Anna engage with any trans or non-binary folks. To see this pattern from her was very disappointing. And all the people, trans, NB, cis, who questioned her about it in her replies were attacked by TERFs, gender-critical Karens, and right-wingers. There was hope Anna would acknowledge the pain she caused and learn from this. And she did end up addressing it on TYT. Not helpful. Zeke. I adore Zeke. He's a whiff of fresh air in the fart sauna of Twitter. He's a kind, wonderful, supportive person who posts his guitar playing and fun gifs and clips of the lefty shows he watches. Check out his feed if you ever need a palate cleanser. He posted Anna's response to pushback about her tweet. Let's just say my takeaway was very different than his, but I still adore him.
C. Zerkley wrote in, I love TYT, but I'm kind of tired of getting the vibe from Anna, and even Cenk at times, that my plight as a trans man who could get preggers if raped offends her because she feels like birthing persons is offensive.
If only Cenk could have seen this coming. Maybe if he had warning of some sort, I don't know, like a conversation as to why this language would be problematic.
So let me just address something, okay? For me, as a woman who has experienced endless debates, like our bodies are so politicized. And I hate feeling from the right wing my entire life that our bodies are just meant for producing children.
Do you know who else's bodies have been politicized? Trans people. Laws are being made every day about what they're allowed to do with their bodies. People in washrooms have strangers demand to know what's under their clothes. Politicians question people, sometimes children, about their genitals during committee meetings. School officials want to be able to examine children's body parts just so they can play on sports. And do you not think I know what it's like to be viewed as nothing more than something men can use? These were a D cup when I was in grade 8. I think I know a thing or two about unwanted male attention. Trans folks constantly have their bodies fetishized. Our reproductive choices are also under attack, and we are literally being defined by which body parts we have.
So the phrase person with a uterus, for me, is triggering, but I understand the importance of inclusive language.
But do you?
I just don't like to be boiled down to a body part. So Mike Figueiredo from the Humanist Report reminded me of a video we did a few years ago where we were defending someone who used the phrase people with the capacity for pregnancy in the context of the abortion debate, I believe it was. I'm totally fine with that. I think that's totally fine. If that's what they want to use in a medical setting, great. But for me, my personal preference is I don't like to be referred to, even in the context of an abortion debate, as a person with a uterus. Person with the capacity for pregnancy, that's great.
Oh, great, we have your approval, do we? Person with the capacity to get pregnant. That's wonderful you came up with that for us. Yep, we have Anna Kasparian's authorization to go ahead with this phrase. You, a cis woman, do not get to dictate what language is acceptable for trans and MBs to use when talking about our bodies. You get no say in this, and it's ridiculous you feel your personal opinion matters one bit. No one is going to refer to you specifically in a way in which you don't want, but you do not get to determine what language millions of people use because it rubs you the wrong way.
That's all I'm saying. I think my track record on transgender issues is pretty clear, and I hope you understand that I have no disdain or hatred for the transgender community whatsoever. That's all.
And I do believe you, but you're lacking understanding and empathy and seem very reluctant to learn. Looking at this objectively, removing my feelings towards her that I like and respect her, quite honestly, she would have been better off not addressing it than to say this. And I say addressing because she never apologized. Look, if you're triggered by these phrases, well then that's a you problem. Let's say I'm an atheist. I'm totally fine with other people being religious. I want them to have equal rights and support their lifestyle. But I've had bad experiences with religions, and because of that, the sight of religious symbols is triggering to me. So at my workplace, I tell others they're not allowed to display their religious symbols. I don't care if that cross necklace was a gift from their grandma. I don't want to see it. I respect other people's right to choose their religion. Is it too much to ask they respect my religion in return by satisfying my demand and keep their religious symbols to themselves? You see, if that was the case, then that would be a me problem, something I would have to get over. If Anna doesn't approve of or is bothered by the phrases settled on, then that's something she needs to work out. Not blast her grievances online, inflicting harm on people she claims to support. And it's not just her. I've seen so many cis women taking this opportunity to play the victim, who are taking it as a personal slight. We aren't picking terms that cater to their sensibilities. That by somehow talking about a diverse group of people, by specifying something they all have in common, is demeaning and removing their womanhood. This isn't about them, but they want it to be. I replied to Zeke's posting of that clip by saying, sadly, the damage has been done. The right-wingers TERFs who've been cheering her on and energized by her tweet won't see this clip or believe she means it. Anna hurt a lot of people with that tweet, people who will be dealing with the fallout long after she moves on. A couple of replies to my reply I want to touch on. But doesn't the right always take and run with everything? This doesn't strike me as a productive guideline. Yeah, sure, they do. How does that excuse an anti-trans tweet? The damage I was talking about was the pain she caused trans and MB folks. She did all of the work for them. All they had to do was retweet exactly what she said. This was gift-wrapped content for them. Matt Walsh, a troll without a bridge, has used this in a video to show just how unreasonable the left is, claiming we're canceling one of our own because she wanted to be referred to as a woman. His reach is millions of people. She gave this to him by sending out a tweet almost indistinguishable from something the self-imposed queen of TERFs, J.K. Rowling, could have wrote. Of course, Anna isn't responsible for what the right does with what she says, but as a public figure with wide influence, she needs to be conscientious of how her words will be received. And if the right takes something and runs with it, she should forcefully condemn it, not agree with them. And since the TERFs will never see Anna push back on them, means they'll always have her as an example to point to of how even prominent people on the left agree there's only two genders that are dictated by what body parts you have. I thought she was against that sort of thing. What drives me crazy is the fact people are piling on Anna because of what the right wing will do. Anna has never advocated against any women's right or trans rights issues. Anna also was speaking for herself and not for everyone. No, she's being piled on because the tweet was anti-trans, and a lot of her LGBTQ+ fans were hurt by what she did. For days, if any trans or MB person went on Twitter, we couldn't avoid women saying we don't exist. Women telling me how I identify is illegitimate. People who were already regularly attacked received a barrage of harassment because a tweet from someone on the far left was perceived to have given them a blessing to be as hostile and brash as they want. And it's also interesting that some, not all people, I don't know this person, so I'm not saying anything about them, but a lot of people, when it comes to content creators they like, say we shouldn't hold them accountable for what the right does because of what they say, are often the same people who, when it comes to content creators they don't like, want to hold them accountable for what their fans do. The left eating itself will cause more damage than any single tweet will ever do. The right will weaponize anything. That's their entire MO. Me, a non-binary person, calling out Anna on something that is offensive is not the left eating itself. Every time we have a disagreement isn't the left eating itself. I'm not trying to cancel Anna. I'm not claiming she's a bad person. I want to hold her accountable for what she did. If we label every argument as the left eating itself, it diminishes good faith discourse. I want the left to be better. I want the left to do better. We do that by holding each other to reasonable standards. No matter what Anna's intentions were, no matter how supportive of trans folks she is, sending that tweet out hurt a lot of people. People who are vulnerable and in a heightened state of fear. People who felt betrayed because a person they look up to would so callously do something so harmful. If I'm at a shooting range with a bow and arrow, I'm in Canada, we don't have any guns up here, and I aim at the target but I overshoot and strike a bystander in the leg, it doesn't matter they weren't my target. It doesn't matter it was a mistake. It doesn't matter what my intentions were. I'd be responsible for that person's pain. You don't get to then go up to the person afterwards and say, I normally hit the target, so you acknowledging your pain is unreasonable. Then Jank, host and founder of TYT, got into it. Not helpful. He has my number. My favorite are these bitch moves where people ask others to correct us. Are you complaining to the manager, Karen? I got news for you. I am the manager. Really? You're seriously going to talk to your audience like this? Come on, Jank. They want you to have a conversation, not Clockwork Orange you. Here's something everyone on the left and right should know. At the Young Turks, we don't get bullied. We love you all and will fight for you, but we're not going to change our mind because you think our opinion is incorrect or because you yelled at us. Never going to happen. Nothing like advertising you're closed-minded. You can at least listen to why people think your opinion is incorrect instead of assuming you're right on everything, because you're not. And you want to talk about bullies? That tweet you quoted, yeah, this one. Of all the thousands of replies you got, you chose to single out someone with less than 50 followers? You, with over 560,000 followers and massive social influence, chose that person to respond to and pick on. If you think I'm going to tell my female co-host what she can call herself or what words she's allowed to use, you're nuts. And you don't know me at all. We do something radical at TYT. We let everyone have their own opinion. I know. It's a novel concept in media. If only you were as passionate about defending your LGBTQ+ audience as you are defending your female co-host's anti-trans take. If you think our hundreds of videos defending trans rights aren't enough, and probably much more aggressively and loudly than anyone else in media, and that slight differences of opinions around the edges means we should be disowned, have at it, Hoss. Still love you though. No to all of that, the framing everything. This isn't a slight difference around the edge. Anna tweeted an anti-trans message. You don't get a pass on that because you've made videos defending trans rights. It doesn't work like that. This isn't a make 4 videos supporting trans folks and get one transphobic tweet free of consequence. I can't say, I've done 10 good deeds today, so I should be allowed to slap someone across the face out of the blue and get away with it. You see, this is where my nerve got hit particularly hard. I felt this personally. The frustration this caused is testing the limits of my medication. This isn't the first time this has come up. Last year, I was a contributor on Rebel HQ. Yep, TYT's Rebel HQ. I saw a segment on the main show in which Cenk and Anna came across as mocking a doctor for using gender-inclusive language, birthing people. I was perturbed by this, so I reached out and I expressed my perturbedness. I know, shocking. I can't keep my mouth shut on issues I'm passionate about. I felt it would be beneficial to have a conversation about gender-inclusive language, and to their credit, it was set up. 11 months ago, I was on the conversation with Cenk talking about this exact issue. Would you look at that? See that? See the title? When, how, and if we should use the term birthing people. There's a link in the description box below. Please go check it out. I like and respect Cenk. I love his fiery passion and how animated he gets, and I have no doubt he cares about the greater good. I was super nervous. This was my only time talking to him, and we only had about 15 minutes to chat. I was hoping I would get the chance to meet him and talk to others at TYT. This isn't exactly how I wanted my first interaction to go. I knew this would be combative, and while I enjoy watching debates, I'm not keen on doing them myself, and up to this point, I hadn't done one. Even though this wasn't the way I wanted this conversation to happen, I wasn't about to back down. And since I was so nervous, I didn't say everything I had wanted, and the time limit prevented me from following up on some of the things he said. But I held my own. I told Cenk to his face I felt like he was dismissing LGBTQ+ concerns. It feels like on the main show, LGBTQ+ issues are brushed off as nothing more than culture war issues distracting from the real problems. And to some extent, it is a distraction. And it's a real problem. This is like someone throwing a bomb into a crowd to distract people while they go rob a bank. It stops being a culture war when laws are made to deny people their rights, when people live in fear of losing their jobs because they're in anything other than a heteronormative relationship, when people are denied medical care, when families risk being torn apart, when children aren't allowed to play in sports or acknowledge their identity or orientation at school, when people have their existence threatened. And at the end of the conversation with Cenk, it again felt like he dismissed what I was saying because it only affects such a small group of people, so why bother putting any energy into it? And it's disappointing because now it feels like me putting myself out there like that was for nothing. Okay, so I want to move on to another frustration I have with the left, but don't worry, everything I just said will be tied back in. The exclusion of trans and MB folks from conversations about trans and MB issues in leftist media. This is just one example. I often see lefty content creators have conversations about various groups of people or different issues without including people directly involved with them. I love the majority report. Sam's response to Anna's tweet was spot on. MR is one of the better shows when it comes to covering LGBTQ+ issues. One of the reasons I appreciate Sam so much is how good he is and always has been on the issues. You can go back well before same-sex marriage was legalized and find Sam talking in support of it. He's fantastic at using inclusive language. When new terms come out or he learns the root of a phrase is offensive, he doesn't argue, he doesn't brush it off or try to defend using it. He accepts it and tries his best to incorporate it going forward. Cenk could learn a thing or two from him. However, where's the trans or MB person on to talk about our issues? The laws being passed, discussion on why language is important, the impending genocide, and so on. Yes, they take calls, and when a trans or MB person calls in, they get the platform. But these calls are luck of the draw. I know, I've tried calling in plenty of times. Allowing someone to speak on the issue because they happen to get through isn't the same as proactively inviting someone onto the show who knows the subject, is part of the group, and can explain what's happening from a place of personal experience. This isn't a dig on them. MR is one show with limited resources and time. With so many important things going on, no one show can cover all that needs to be covered. But it shouldn't just be on them. The Humanist Report, Rational National, The Serve, State Pacman, and many other well-known leftist content creators. While they may cover trans issues, and The Serves in particular kick transphobe ass on Twitter. And while they're all sincere and I truly believe they all care, how often do they include trans and MB folks when talking about trans and MB issues? The Leftist Mafia had a long segment covering Anna's tweet. Mike even said that people like his non-binary cousin who could potentially get pregnant should be included in the conversation. Yeah, But I gotta say, Olay is freaking amazing. Her comments on the show and her takedowns of these aggrieved gender-critical Karens on Twitter is giving me life. Thank you. If these shows have had trans and MB folks on to talk about our issues, please forgive me, I missed it. I don't spend all my time watching political YouTube, but the fact that I do watch a lot of political YouTube and I can't recall much of this happening is telling. And I get it, it's not any one person's responsibility to devote part of their platform to others. And some of the shows don't generally bring on guests. But with the issues facing the trans community right now, how dire the situation is, this needs to happen. I can talk all I want about it on my channel, but since I have such a small platform, my message doesn't reach a lot of people who need to hear it. No matter how good they're at covering what's going on, they're on the outside of an issue looking in, then trying to explain what they see to other people who are also outside of the issue. I know of trans content creators, but I never see them on other shows to specifically talk about trans issues. Now, I can't, in good conscience, say all of this without noting the exception. And despite everything else I've said in this video, this worries me the most. I've been conflicted if I should even say it because I know I'll get backlash. I know I'll lose supporters. It's ridiculous to say. I may even lose friends over it. I shouldn't have to be worried about this. The ironic thing is, it's not me talking negatively about someone that may get me in trouble, but talking positively about someone. The exception is Vaush. I don't want to get into why people think he's problematic or go over things from his past. As a leftist, I'm asking you in good faith, please hear me out on this. Objectively, as someone who's cisgendered, he's done the best job covering trans issues. He devotes a lot of his time to LGBTQ+ issues. He's queer, so that's to be expected. He also devotes a lot of his time specifically on trans issues. He brings on guests who have experience, who have knowledge, who are trans and non-binary to talk about the subject. Whenever someone comes on his show, no matter the context, he politely asks them for their preferred pronouns, and if he forgets, his chat will remind him, sometimes not so politely. Hands down, he has the best arguments in support of trans people I've heard. He debates anti-trans, transphobic right-wingers regularly, and he's able to endure lengthy debates because this isn't personal to him. He doesn't get offended or emotional by what they say, and he stays calm while deconstructing the nonsense they're spewing. I've learned a lot by watching him debate, and by merely debating these right-wingers, he's putting himself on their shit list, making himself a target. The unfortunate thing, even almost tragic, is that due to our infighting, people who would benefit from what he says will never hear it because they're turned off of him due to the vitriol and hate they see from other leftists. I'm including people who have a hate on for him, who refuse to accept he's anything other than the bigoted transphobe they've made up in their minds. Sure, having a villain to focus on can help a small group form community, even bond over it. But we have plenty of villains on the right that need our attention. Before you at me with anything about him, please watch these videos from him linked below. Again, as someone on the left, I'm asking you in good faith to approach them with an open mind. If you can't and have already discounted me because I watch Vaush, please ask yourself how suddenly blowing me off helps the leftist cause. How does holding on to this hatred for Vaush help you? A friend gave me a good breakdown of how the support from cisgendered folks works, and I'll share it with you. So, you have people who are apolitical allies or accomplices. If the Nazis were to come collect me, the apolitical person beside me would say, "That's the woman there," and do nothing as they take me away. The ally beside me would say, "That's the NB there, I don't like this," and do nothing as they take me away. The accomplice beside me would punch the Nazi in the face and help me escape. So no matter how much of an ally a person is, the results are the same as if they had been apolitical. If this were to happen to me, of all the cisgendered lefties I see online, the person I'd want beside me is Vaush. I trust he would punch the Nazi in the face and help me escape. We need more people willing to be accomplices. So I didn't mention TYT with everything I just said. Other than the one time I went on to talk about these issues at my instigation, I haven't seen them bring on anyone else to talk about them, at least not on the main show. Well, excluding the Pride Month special they do once a year. And companies often change to rainbow logos for Pride Month as a way to show support without giving support. TYT does a little bit more by bringing their LGBTQ plus content creators on to talk about LGBTQ plus issues, which is good, and I appreciate it. But funny thing about that, last June I had been making Rebel HQ videos for a few months by then. In fact, the conversation I had with Jank was in April, which is, you know, before June. TYT doesn't have an excuse to limit this to one special once a year. They have the resources, the time, the LGBTQ plus presenters, and an audience that would appreciate it. Part of the frustration, and I feel one of the reasons why people were so upset with Anna's tweet, is because on a couple issues, it's like Jank and Anna are willfully trying not to learn and evolve on them. That by somehow changing their minds or apologizing for something means they've given in to the woke mob. I told them almost a year ago they're losing their LGBTQ plus audience. Other people have tried to reach out to them, but it seems like no matter what we say, what we try to point out, how we try to talk to them, they're digging their heels in and refusing to budge. And when we push back, they go on a tear about the radical left, the far left, extremist woke left trying to force our will on them and demand they meet our unreasonable purity tests or else be canceled and drink cat piss tea. Okay, so I'm on the far left. I want to abolish prisons, the police, socialize as much as possible, get rid of gender norms, use fully inclusive language, have fully inclusive spaces. You know, woke Star Trek. But I'm not trying to force it on anyone. We just want to be heard. I'm not trying to correct Jank, but I will tell him where he's wrong. And I think a lot of the friction comes from the conflation of the far left with the reactionary left. There's a loud part of the left that will jump at everything they can to cause a stir. They'll prod people to give their take on other lefties, not from a place of wanting accountability, but to create more drama. This part of the left, not helpful. Jank and Anna often only acknowledge the takes from this small part of the left and apply it to all of the left. Then they make reactionary takes to the reactionary left. Then people who want to talk in good faith get drowned out. People who have valid points get missed, ignored, or assumed to be demanding something we're not, while being lumped in with people who don't care about the greater good. The way Jank and Anna have been talking about the left like they're not part of it and attacking it, given their influence and how high profile they are, is causing fractures and alienating people within. They're othering other leftists. Leftists like me. Then what do? Get friendly with people like Ben Shapiro? Try to find common ground with him while mocking leftists for being too woke. Sure, so some people might be thinking I'm being too hard on them. I should cut them slack because of all the good they do. But really, I'm not being too hard on them. Given their platform, their reach, their knowledge, and what they say they're hoping to accomplish, they should be held to a higher standard. What are we doing? Like, seriously, what are we doing? Anna is worried her right to control what happens to her body will be taken away. This is a real threat, and we should care. Trans folks are worried their right to exist will be taken away. This is a real threat, and we should care. This isn't an either or. We need to stop ranking who has it worse. There's enough of us to work on more than one issue at a time. Our goals may not be the exact same, but they're all in the same direction. Oh, I need a break. Cat break. Okay, so is everyone still with me? Of course you are. I'm adorable. Let's get on to the main event. I have been saying it throughout this whole video that, it'd be good to get somebody's opinion like me on inclusive language, so I should probably do that. Why inclusive language matters. It's hard to exist in society when you don't exist in the language. It's only been a couple years since I clued into being non-binary. In some of my first videos, you can even see a sign in the background that says, "I am woman, hear me roar." Actually, just hear me. But calling myself a woman felt forced. Fake it till you make it, imposter syndrome type stuff. I've always been non-binary. But when I was a kid, the language didn't exist to express how I felt. It's only when I started to hear it on a wider scale that I figured it out. It's still hard for me to exist as who I am when there's a lack of gender-neutral terms. I'm not a woman, and I menstruate. When talking about issues around reproductive rights, they directly affect MBs like me and trans men. Society is working on coming up with a term that would include all who can get pregnant. Also, keep in mind, there's no gender-neutral term for people who provide the sperm either. Since we're still figuring it out, it's going to sound clumsy and unnatural no matter what we say. People who can get pregnant works, but English speakers are lazy and we want something that's shorter that would get the point across. But I'm kind of with Anna on this one. Birthing people? I'm not keen on that. Sounds like something from a sci-fi novel. However, if it's what society settles on, so be it. Personally, I lean more towards childbearer. Gender-neutral terms are an addition without a subtraction. The word spouse doesn't erase husband and wife. The word parent doesn't negate mother and father. Language is constantly evolving and changing to meet the times. Some examples: chairman, fireman, policeman. But women also do these jobs. So let's add chairwoman, firewoman, policewoman. But when we're talking about these roles, we don't want to assume gender, and there are folks who don't identify as man or woman. Okay, chairperson, fireperson, police person. That sounds lame. How about the chair, firefighter, police officer? These include all genders, and people are still free to use man or woman in their titles. How will these terms be settled on? I don't know. It just kind of happens. Where was the survey that selected Karen for Karens? But by me just saying Karen in that context, you know exactly the type of person I'm talking about. Canadians call our coin money loony and toonies. No one demanded we say that. The government didn't create a committee and examine it. Enough people settled on these until they were popular enough to stick. We have a long way to go. While there's terms floating around, there's no widely accepted neutral versions for boyfriend, girlfriend, uncle, aunt, mummy, daddy, sir, madam, Mr., miss, and so on. I go by she, her pronouns primarily because I present female, so it's less confusing, and I'm not keen on using they, them for myself. If others want to use they, them, great. And I tend to use they, them when the gender of the person is unknown in places of phrases like she or he, or if I feel the gender isn't important to the context in which I'm talking. When it's used towards me, I don't mind, but I may miss you're talking about me. If there was another widely accepted gender-neutral pronoun, I'd probably go with that. I have ideas on what I feel would make good terms, and if I had the social influence to make a trend, I'd go for it. Like for pronouns, I'd use per and pers, like the first part of person. Then use that in place for boyfriend, girlfriend. I'd be the per-friend. I think for Mr., Miss, mix is becoming popular. Cool. And for woman, man, NB works just fine. Okay, so I thought of this after I made the video, but I really like it and want to share it. When using formalities, lady, gentleman, mixure would be really cool. But as Cenk implied, do we really need to spend energy on figuring out what to call people who can get pregnant that aren't cis women when it affects so few people? But how tiny is that group? And what's the percent needed to care? 5%? 10? If people who are Jewish or Muslim said blank word is offensive, or we'd prefer to be called blank, generally speaking, good people try to accommodate them and listen to what they have to say. Society tries to be inclusive and take their concerns seriously. And yeah, we should. If you had to take a guess, what percent of the population of the US do you think is Jewish? What percent is Muslim? Let's take a peek at something. Less than 2% of the US population is Jewish. Less than 1% is Muslim. I've been trying to find the numbers, but I can't find anything that has how many people were assigned female at birth, AFAB, who aren't cisgendered women. My best educated guess places the percent slightly below that of Muslims. And that's with the current adult population. Gen Z has a much higher percent of people who identify as LGBTQ+, with non-binary becoming increasingly more common. I don't think it will take all that long before our percent exceeds the percent of Muslims and possibly even more than the percent of Jewish people in the population. And it's not just about people who can get pregnant that aren't cis women. It's their friends, family, people in their community who want to respect us and use terms that reflect who we are. That tiny group just got a whole lot bigger. But the most important reason to care is that it's about being included in society by being included in the language. So, to wrap all of this up, TYT is an amazing network with a lot of amazing people. They've done so much good and continue to do good. I'm immensely grateful and proud. I can say I was a contributor to TYT. Hopefully someday I can drop in again in some capacity. Yes, I had harsh criticisms of Cenk and Anna, and I appreciate all that they do. But I'm not going to shy away when criticism is due. On the left, we need to sort out the difference between reactionary takes and good faith discourse. With all the right-wing bullshit going on, we need to come together now more than ever. How do we come together? We have limited resources to break through the algorithms, so it's important to share what we have. Credit to the serfs, they frequently bring attention to smaller channels. These awesome drawings are from the Letter Hack. He wants to bring lefties together through art. Currently on his YouTube channel, he's drawing people while interviewing them. Check him out on Twitter and Instagram to find out about different lefty content creators. And a super big shout out to Dan from the web. He brought me onto his show, The Power Report, a few times, and I've always had a blast, and I appreciate it. Please go check out his channel. He makes amazing content. Despite how frustrated I was at being excluded from the discourse when it directly affected me, I understand why. They're not about to invite me on when they have no clue I exist. Even if they did, it's still their call if I fit the vibe of their show. Even if I were invited, I may turn them down if I feel like it's not for me. I'd definitely go on the majority report if invited. Just saying. Fans of my show can help by mentioning me in the chats and comments of other shows. I know I'll face backlash for some of the things I said, but I hope people understand everything I said was coming from a place of wanting the left to do better. I try my best to spread the progressive message. I'm always looking for ways to improve and grow. I truly care, and I want the best outcomes for as many people as possible. It's important when one of us stumbles, we don't leave them behind. We won't agree on everything, and there's nothing wrong with that. We need to stop treating every disagreement like a competition that has winners or losers. If we keep fighting each other, none of us will get across the finish line. I don't know what more I can say. I'm far from having the answers on how to solve this. Just try to remember we're all people in the end. And thank you so much to the people who have supported me through this. Normally, I try to read all the comments I get on my videos, but given what I was receiving on Twitter, don't be surprised if I don't get around to the ones left on this. Making this video has took a lot out of me, and I'm going to need a few days to process. I'll end with this. Please treat yourselves well, treat each other better. Treat each other well, treat yourselves better. Salut, à la prochaine. Thank you for watching and stay tuned. I'm Sandy, wishing your tomorrow is better than your today.